Welcome back, guys, to another Data Mine. Today we are going to be going over the newest event, Revelation of Dust, which will get us a bunch of new British ships. HMS Implacable will be one of them, the newest UR carrier. We'll have to see if she's any better than our latest UR carrier, Yorktown 2, which came just a few months ago. As with most UR ship announcements, there was a live stream, which I covered. However, for those of you who don't want to rewatch the whole archive, here is a short recap of the relevant information from that live stream. In addition to mentioning the event that is releasing later today, we have a roadmap for some reruns. Next up will be Daedalian Hymn, which includes Aquila and Vittorio Veneto, both really powerful event exclusive ships. Also, we will be getting a rerun of the UR event Mere Involution. Yes, this is the New Jersey event. She will be getting a rerun very soon. Also, Richie in the promotional video was trying to trick us into thinking this might be a French event, but it just turns out that her event, Skybound Oratorio, will be added to the War Archives, along with Sovietskaya Rossiya's Northern Overture event. Additionally, they made the announcement that the Queen's Orders anime will be coming out on Blu-ray on May 10th. If you purchase the Blu-ray, you will get a code for an exclusive Queen Elizabeth swimsuit skin. However, if you don't want to pay for a new outfit for Queen Elizabeth, she will be getting a meta form. Yes, Queen Elizabeth will be the next boss of the meta fights in Operation Siren. No, she didn't get a retrofit to make her an SR, but she did get a meta form that will be an SR. Additionally, the patch notes mentions a change to the experience gain ship's skills. These are ships like Langley, Hoshao, Amazon, and Yubari, which all have skills that boost the experience that you gain for certain ship types. These skills will now only stack up to 2 times maximum. This hasn't really been relevant up until this point. There's not more than 2 of these type of ships per ship type. But the addition of this new wording tells me it's likely we're going to have more in our future, and that might even be later on in this video. So let's move on to this event and what we're getting today. Of course, we are going to be getting a bunch of new skins, not as many as usual, and no L2Ds, but we will get several dynamic animation skins. Additionally, we will get new gear skins, if you want to drop flying pianos from the sky, and a dorm theme. As for the event itself, the maps aren't great for grinding. They don't bring any useful new gear, except maybe the Barracuda for a very new player. The event shop is pretty standard. It gives us the new SR and a bunch of the standard items that are available in event shops. It also gives us a new equipment, a Fairy Firefly dive bomber. We'll talk more about this specific equipment later on in this video. The event lore is going to spoil us on a new character, La Gazinière Meta. And with that, let's move into the new ships for this event. Here's the fleet tech, so if any of these ships are bad, at least you can get the fleet tech. So let's start off by taking a look at the UR ship, HMS Implacable. Stat-wise, she's pretty interesting. She seems a little bit weaker than Yorktown 2. She has less HP, she has less aviation, she has heavy armor instead of medium armor, so that should help. Her reload's actually quite a bit slower than Yorktown 2. Her loadout is 3 fighters, 3 flex slots, which can be any type of plane, and 3 torpedo bombers. Her loadout is worse than Yorktown 2 in my opinion because she has an extra fighter she has to equip rather than a flex slot, and her flex slot has lower efficiency. So overall stat-wise, I'd say she's weaker than Yorktown 2. That doesn't mean much because we have a lot of skills to get through. And also keep in mind, Yorktown 2 pretty much has the best stats of any carrier in the game. Even better than Hakuryu and Shinano. But Shinano and Hakuryu are used more because of their skills and synergy. Overall, I'd say she's one of the weaker UR carriers. She seems very squishy at only 7,000 HP. However, being a UR carrier, she is already in the top 5 carriers in the game stat-wise. So if she has anything decent as a kit, she'll be pretty good. So let's get into the skills. Skill number 1. For her fleet or for the first 3 battles of other fleets, so here's the cross fleet, if Implacable is still alive when allied ships are damaged, she gains a resentment stack each time. This maxes out at 9 times. So basically, anytime you're taking damage For any of the ships in your fleet, she's going to stack. When this ship launches an airstrike, clear all of the resentment stacks, she fires a barrage, and she gets the following effects on the stacking number. If she has 3 or more stacks, she gets 10% increase to her damage dealt for 5 seconds, which is perfect because she's already in the midst of launching her airstrike based on the timing here. So that's actually really good. And 10% damage is fantastic. Then if she has 6, you get the 3 skill and the 6 skill. The 6 skill is the barrage will not increase this ship's detection gauge. So when you launch a barrage, basically carriers become more revealed. She's not going to have that happen, so she can stay hidden longer. This isn't super important, but it's nice to have. And if you get all 9 stacks, you get the 2 first abilities, and the barrage that you fire has a 100% crit rate. That is very impressive, so you're guaranteed to crit. Unfortunately, it isn't for the whole airstrike, because that would be stupid busted. It's only for the barrage. The barrage has 6 bombs, I believe, at 220 damage each. This is not bad, and guaranteed crits here are really nice. Now, the question is, like, how often are we going to get to 9 stacks? So she actually has kind of a low reload, so unless another skill reduces her launch time or increases her reload, she's probably going to be firing in the, mid 20-second range. And at that launch time, if you're fighting with a fleet of 6 in like an end game map, you're probably going to be taking 9 instances of damage in that time frame. It shouldn't be too hard to stack up 9 in that instance. All right, skill number 1 is long and interesting. I like 10% self-damage increase. That's really cool. It is kind of a weird gimmick. She does feel like a nun. She's like resenting all of the damage that you're dealing to your fleet. It's interesting. I like it. There wasn't anything to do with the cross fleet. It kind of mentioned it. So I'm wondering if there's another skill that takes these stacks, because it talks about for the first 3 battles of other fleets and then doesn't go into it any further. So I'm guessing that the other skills are going to have to deal with these resentment stacks, which actually seems like it could be a cool gimmick. But rather than speculate, let's move on to skill number 2 and just figure it out. Skill number 2, when launching an airstrike, gradually reduce all the current enemy's speed to 0 over 2 seconds, freeze them for 2 seconds, and the enemy gradually gains their speed back to normal over the next 2 seconds. Oh my gosh, we get a freeze! And it's the good one. It's the one like August von Parsifal. You basically launch the airstrike while your planes are getting off the ramp. You are getting your speed to go up to max, so it's going to take 2 seconds. Then you're going to be fully frozen from 2 to 4 seconds. So basically you're going to have an effect of a freeze through that 4 seconds when your torpedo bombers are getting ready, and then you have another 2 seconds as they slowly regain it. So technically they're going to be affected for a total of 6 seconds, and the middle 2 seconds they're going to be completely frozen. This is the best type of freeze that a carrier can have. August von Parsifal had this, and that made her pretty much one of the best carriers that you could bring. And now we have a UR ship that does it. Say hello to power creep. Too bad my August von Parsifal, she's going to be pretty sad, because I think based on the stats that we have and the 10% damage buff that she gets from this first skill, I think that we're going to be switching to Implacable from August von Parsifal. I think there's going to be some power creep there. And we aren't even done. We still have the second half of this skill and a third skill to get over, but this is basically a copy paste skill from August von Parsifal for the freeze part of this, and she's just a better carrier stat wise. So yeah, this is a total power creep on August von Parsifal, and it's a great skill. Note, you might actually want to have this skill more than once. You can have multiple freezes, so this doesn't mean that August von Parsifal is never going to see play ever again, but it does mean that she's no longer the best freeze in the game, I don't think. All right, let's keep reading. In addition, reduce one enemy's evasion by 20% for 6 seconds. That's sweet. So not only are they going to be frozen, but they are going to reduce their evasion, so they're probably going to get hit. So yeah, definitely better than August von Parsifal. And then for the first 3 battles done by the other fleet, okay, here's the cross fleet maybe. The first battleship salvo or carrier airstrike done by the flagship clears the resentment stacks. Okay, so this is talking about the resentment stacks from the first skill, which only happens for the first 3 battles of this other sortie fleet. So this is the cross fleet, and you're going to stack up every time that one of your ships takes damage for the first 3 battles, and then basically the first salvo or airstrike is going to clear them. So this only happens on the first one. It doesn't happen continually. So hopefully you get the 9 stack. You might not get the 9 stacks or whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter because we have a totally different, I see the stacks are different here. Anyway, 2 seconds after the first battleship salvo or carrier airstrike, grant the certain effects depending on the number of stacks cleared. So if you get to 3 to 5, the enemy has their speed reduced by 20% for 2 seconds. Oh my gosh, this is a cross-fleet speed reduction. If you get 6 to 8 stacks, it's a 60% reduction for 2 seconds. And if you get all 9 stacks, you get a full freeze. It goes to 0 for 2 seconds. And that's 2 seconds afterwards, so you're going to have that delay. So if you have a carrier that is launching as your flagship, you're going to wait the 2 seconds so the planes can catch up to the frozen target. The only thing I would say is in your cross fleet is you might have a battleship or you might have a carrier that has a reduced cooldown, and you might not be able to build up those 9 stacks from their first airstrike or salvo, and it only occurs on the first one, and getting to 9 might be hard in like 15 seconds or 18 seconds, or if you have Aquila preloaded, you're never going to get any of the stacks. So I would say that this is very good. It's a cross-fleet freeze, but you do need to get those stacks. So there are some limitations behind it. I still think you're going to still use Kronk because Kronk obviously has a cross-fleet slow as well. But I think this one's probably going to be more useful. You're going to use both, right? There's no reason not to run Kronk in your cross-fleet because there's not a lot of Vanguard cross-fleets. Whether or not you use this one as your cross-fleet is going to depend on what you need. There's a lot of good main fleet cross-fleets at this point, but this is pretty good. This gets you ability to have a cross fleet slow, and I really appreciate that. Really good for Operation Siren as well. All right, let's move on to the final skill of this new UR. At the start of battles, increase her own aviation by 10%. That's weird. I think Yorktown 2 increases her own aviation by 15%. So that's a lower aviation stat, lower efficiency for your flex bombers, and a lower buff to aviation. So that's not great. I mean, that's not saying that she's worse than Yorktown by any means, because Yorktown has nothing like the freeze that she does, but it's not as powerful of a hit. She does increase her hit/accuracy stat by 10%, which is really nice. When she's equipped with a dive bomber, which has to be in that flex spot that we talked about, she gets to increase her reload by 10%, and that sounds really good, but remember, her reload was already a little bit lower, so that reload brings her just about higher than Yorktown 2's reload, so a little bit faster than Yorktown 2 when you put a dive bomber on her. This is kind of weird because now you are locked into having a dive bomber, which may be slower than what you want, but then you get this skill, which makes it a little bit faster. But overall, 10% reload, we're going to take that. We're going to make her launch a little bit faster. You're probably going to throw a dive bomber on her, but if you wanted to use double torpedo bombers, it's going to be super slow. When air control is at air parity or higher, which honestly, when you're running this ship, you are probably going to be there anyway. But when that happens, HMS Vanguard fleet ships, not HMS Vanguard the ship, HMS Vanguard fleet ships, that's going to be so confusing for the rest of time, they get 15% anti-air stat increase and 15% evasion increase. So that's going to be a nice faction buff there that creates some survivability in the Vanguard. That's cool. And then HMS main fleet ships, this includes herself, get a 6% damage reduction in what they take from aviation scaling damage. So she's also going to buff herself and any other HMS ships that you bring along. Should be pretty easy to get air control parity. You get that automatically in PvP, and it should be pretty easy to get in PvE too. So honestly, I really like this ship. This ship is awesome. Like, I would say the skills are fantastic. I would go out on a limb and just say that she's better than Yorktown 2. Obviously, Yorktown 2 has some interesting synergy and is really good against light armor, but, this ship has a freeze and a cross-fleet freeze, and she has that 10% damage stack and a really nice, basically, barrage. I mean, it's not really a barrage. It's like an airstrike that's like 6 extra bombers. She's really good. I would actually say that this ship is going to probably make the cut for the triple carrier fleet. Like, she takes that spot. Like Musashi or Yorktown 2 or August von Parsifal or Ark Royal Retrofit. Those were like the third carrier that you were going to run with Shinano and Hakuryu in like a triple carrier fleet for either bosses or for meta fights or even just in Operation Siren. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Implacable is going to be that third slot, like pretty guaranteed here. Like I don't see a reason why we wouldn't run her as that third slot here. She doesn't need any other HMS ships like to get any of her skills. She like benefits if they're there, so like you could run Sirius with her for that carrier fleet. She doesn't interfere with any of what you're trying to do with Shinano and Hakuryu, which are gonna, you know, buff each other and work with Kazugumo. So I really don't see how she isn't that third slot unless you really need a battleship for some reason. Like then you go with Musashi, but I would say she's really, really good. Like that freeze is so nice. 100% crit rate on her barrage, which is strong. Yeah, this ship is a really powerful UR. This is a very exciting ship. But yeah, so best freeze in the game. I'd say she's a top 3 carrier in the game. She's going to go in your carrier fleet, most likely. Interestingly enough, she doesn't actually buff the attack of other HMS ships, but that makes sense. She's a nun. She's non-offensive. She gets resentment when damage is dealt. I really like this ship, though, overall, so definitely must pick up. All right, I talked long enough about the UR. Let's move on to the SRs, and we'll start off with the battleship HMS Royal Oak. She is an SR. Stat-wise, she seems very unimpressive here. Her health is under 8,000. Her firepower is 422, which is actually what HMS Vanguard had. But if you remember, HMS Vanguard had a pretty low firepower for a UR, and HMS Vanguard had a lot higher efficiencies on her main battleship gun. Royal Oak actually is kind of not very impressive stat-wise. She reminds me of pre-retrofit Warspite in the way that she is kind of built. So unless she has some pretty impressive skills, she might not be that impressive. Remember, she's also going to be the one that's available in the event shop, so she's basically free if you play the event. Skill number 1. If there is at least one destroyer or light cruiser in the fleet, speed increases by 3, and her firepower increases by 10%. Speed? Like, for a battleship? Okay, I just confirmed with like 3 translators that is indeed speed, and she is buffing her speed by 3 as a battleship that doesn't move. What? Manju, are you on crack? What are you doing? I guess technically the speed can affect the range at which your like chibi on the map can go, but in battle it does nothing. What is this? There must be something, right? That there must be something else in a skill that relates to speed. Why are we... I don't know. All right, I'm just going to roll with it, and we'll keep going. When this ship takes damage, fire a barrage, 10-second cooldown between activations. If the barrage isn't procced in 20 seconds, she's going to fire the barrage regardless. So she's going to sit there. If she takes damage, she fires the barrage, and if she doesn't take damage, she fires the barrage. Anyway, just, 10 seconds later. The barrage is actually really good. It's got HE pellets. It's got a bunch of spread of 20. It's got AP pellets as well. It's actually a really solid barrage. It looks just like, basically, it's like when she takes damage. So it's going to be like Ulrich von Hutten and those type of ships, Frederick der Grosse. That's really cool. I guess those barrages are really nice, but it's going to be on a ship that's definitely weaker than what we've been getting in terms of battleships lately. And I still am just awestruck by the fact that she's increasing her own speed. All right, let's move on to skill number 2. She's only got 2 skills, so maybe this will do something with speed. When an HMS ship in the fleet receives a fatal hit, evade that hit, stays afloat, the ship becomes invulnerable to all damage for 3 seconds and heals itself 3% of its max HP, and this procs once per battle. Okay, so that's really cool. She basically has an invincibility. It's only 3 seconds, so it's like really short, but it's not an instant death like the Manju. So you get a 3% heal as well, and this can trigger on herself, or it can trigger on a different HMS ship if you, play an HMS fleet. This is actually really cool. I like it. It's a heal. It's invincibility. Great. 3 seconds is a little short though. And in PvE, you're not really going to hope that any of your ships are dying, but I like it. It is a heal and it is invincibility. So maybe something fun for PvP. When this ship has more than 18% HP remaining, increase the damage she deals by 18%. Odd they did 18 and 18. Maybe is there something related to her history that makes 18 an important number? Like why 18? Anyway, so she gets to deal 18% more damage pretty much most of the time she's alive. She also redirects 50% of the damage taken by other HMS main fleet ships, so that could be Implacable, but it can't be Drake. And she takes that damage, and that damage is also reduced by 30% when it's done this way. So if Implacable is going to be taking damage, you can basically transfer half of it over to Royal Oak, and 30% of that damage is going to just go away, and she'll take the rest of it. I guess that's okay. I mean, so it's kind of like almost like South Dakota and Washington, how they work, but she can do it with any HMS main fleet ship, so that's kind of neat. When this ship has 18% or less HP, she reduces the damage she takes by 18%, so more survivability. This kind of reminds me of how Frederick der Grass worked before she got her Fate Simulation. Anyway, she also heals 3% of her max HP every 5 seconds until her HP is above 18% again. So that's actually a lot. So she could go all the way down to like 1% HP and she could then get a 17% heal. Of course, it's going to be over the course of, 5 or 6 procs of 5 seconds each. So that could be a 30-second heal. You're going all the way. So it's actually really slow. But remind you, she's also got that other skill that makes her invincible for 3 seconds and then heals her another 3%. So she's got a lot of potential heal here. One thing I just kind of noticed is there's no once per battle on this part of the skill. Obviously, the invincible part does have a once per battle, but the way that I read this is that only affects that first part of this skill, and that this part that has the heal can be triggered as many times and every time she's dropping below 18%, which means she can just keep healing back to 18%, get her damage back, then go below and heal back and go below. And that's actually kind of interesting and could be a super big pain to get rid of if you're trying to kill her. Of course, her heal's kind of slow. 3% every 5 seconds is a slow ramp up, but I don't think that this has a once per battle restriction, so that could be really fun. Royal Oak ended up being surprisingly fun. Her stats are still trash for, the era that we're in. Obviously, 3 years ago, she would be amazing. But yeah, I don't know. She's really unique. There was nothing in here that talked about that speed. I have no idea why she increases her speed. Like, that's still just silly and doesn't do anything. But actually, that second skill is really good. She's got invincibility that she can transfer to any other HMS ship. She has basically a heal that keeps on going, like a zombie skill that's not once per battle proc, which is amazing. 18% damage dealt is also nice. She can reduce the damage that other HMS main fleets take. So she's got a lot of things going for her. She's got a really cool kit, actually. The barrage is actually also really nice. She's a great ship, I think, overall. Like, she's very exciting. She's not the UR of the event, but I still think she's a must pick up here. And I'm probably going to fool around with her in a HMS only PvP fleet because she looks kind of fun that way, so we'll see. But definitely I would pick her up. She's pretty easy to pick up. She's just going to be in the event shop, so definitely do that. So anyway, we got one other SR ship left, and we're already this far into the video, so I've been talking really long here, and we're not even into the elites yet. But let's talk about the next SR ship, HMS Celia. She's a light cruiser. She is a Dido class light cruiser, so she's very similar stat-wise to her sisters Dido and Hermione, Sirius, Charybdis. However, I will say she actually has a good chunk of HP, which is nice, and a lot of anti-air. Anti-air is where I think she's the highest of anyone in her class, and that's actually a very high anti-air stat, so that's where she's really focused here, and so with that, she's going to be pretty survivable. Also, it helps that her anti anti-air efficiency is higher than her sister's too, so she is really stacked towards anti-air. And even her fleet tech bonus is anti-air, so definitely an anti-air ship. So let's see what the skills are. Skill number 1, when this ship fires her main gun, she increases her firepower by 5% and her anti-air by 5%. This stacks up to 6 times, so that's a potential 30% boost. Like, that alone tells me that her main gun, you're probably going to want to have, because she can equip a destroyer gun, you're probably going to want to have like a really fast destroyer gun shot, and you can stack that real quick. Upon reaching that max 6 stacks, all of your Vanguard fleet ships with lower anti-air stat than Skillia get a 25% anti-air boost until the end of the battle. Well, that's pretty easy. She has a really high anti-air stat at 445, so that's pretty much most of the ships that you're going to be pairing her with. Also, this is really nice because you can add her as the anti-air buff and then just run the other 2 ships for whatever else you need in your fleet and completely ignore anti-air, and then she'll literally buff their anti-air. Also, I think that is going to be like after her stacks. So I think that's after her 6 stacks too. Or maybe, yeah, it would be after her 6 stacks. So like that's pretty much going to be everybody ever except maybe like Sandy or something. But like you're not going to put them together. This is actually really useful. It happens to the end of the battle. So yeah, I say this is like a really powerful anti-air skill. It's very niche to anti-air, and anti-air is obviously not as important as other things. But there are situations where you really need anti-air, and she is a boss for that. She's got tons of anti-air stat, great anti-air efficiency. You can stack 30% anti-air buff here, and then you can give all of your other Vanguard ships anti-air buff too. So that's really nice. Moving on, skill number 2. If there are other ships in the Vanguard, well, that's a pretty easy condition to meet. And why wouldn't you want to meet it? Like, skill number 1, she's gonna buff all the other Vanguard ships. So I guess you're not using her in a 1-1 fleet, which isn't saying much because you probably weren't gonna do that anyway. So anyway, if she's got friends in the Vanguard, she gets her own torpedo stat and evasion stat buffed by 20%. That evasion stat buff is not nothing and is actually really nice. Whenever this ship fires her torpedoes, fire a barrage. Enemies hit by this barrage receive 6% more aviation damage for 6 seconds. The barrage itself isn't that much. It is normal ammo, so that's not great, but it does have torpedoes, which is nice. You can see that they're definitely trying to create synergy with Implacable, or really any carrier. One thing I will note is even though 6% aviation damage is nice, it's going to be kind of challenging to time those torpedoes perfectly. You're going to need to have it fire in a 6-second window with the airstrike that you're trying to buff. Definitely doable, but it might require you to shift around your equipment a little bit so that the timing will work out. If 6 enemy planes are downed within the Vanguard anti-air circle, all of your carriers and light carriers will take 15% less damage. That's a nice damage reduction. Getting 6 planes down could be difficult. I still think with the tricky requirements to proc these sort of skills, Sirius is still the best Dido sister to buff your carriers. However, I will say that this ship is one of the best anti-air buffs out there. Pairing her with Cheshire and Implacable will probably be one of the best anti-air fleets that you can build. The only 3 ships that have higher anti-air than her are San Diego, Juno, and Reno. However, where she will shine the most is with buffing ships that have a anti-air gun +1. They will all be eligible for her buff, and it will help her get her stacks for her carrier buff. Pairing her with Kazugumo and her sister Sirius can be really nice if you're running a triple carrier fleet. Also, I forgot her 3rd skill, which is just an all-out assault every 10 main gun shots. The all-out assault is not that great. It does have AP ammo, but you can fire it every 6 shots if you equip a destroyer gun. It's going to proc more of these all-out assaults. It's going to get to her 6 stacks that she needs faster, and she's not really focused on dealing a lot of firepower damage. She's probably going to deal more damage from torpedoes than her main gun, and really her purpose and role is as a support character, as well as an anti-air ship. So I would recommend equipping her with any fast-firing destroyer gun. Overall, this ship is great too. Like, this is kind of a must pick up for me. I was not expecting this, but all of the UR and SR ships in this event are must pickups for me. Implacable is a top 3 carrier in the game. Royal Oak is also a really interesting PvP play if you're trying to go with a Royal Navy PvP fleet. She also can abuse her barrage and a lot of her heals. And finally, Scylla is like one of the best anti-air buffing ships in the game. I would not want to miss out on any of these ships in my dock. This event has been very unexpectedly exciting so far. And we're not even done yet. We still have 2 more ships to go through, and they're both elites. So first up, we have the light carrier HMS Argus. As an elite light carrier, we're not really expecting too much from her stats, and she certainly doesn't deliver anything special. At least she has 3 torpedo bombers and 3 fighters, but she does have that crappy anti-air gun that most light carriers have. I don't know, anytime you're talking less than 300 aviation for a carrier, then you really just have to have skills that make this ship good, so let's get into them. When an allied carrier or light carrier drops her HP below 20%, heal that ship by 10% of their max HP. This procs once per battle. This is a pretty powerful heal, but it is limited to only carriers and light carriers, and its activation condition is a little bit late. You usually aren't going to be having your carriers drop below 20% HP unless your fleet is overwhelmed. At the start of the battle, if Argus is afloat, carriers and light carriers in the fleet get 12% aviation, 10% reload, and Argus's first airstrike loading time is reduced by 25%. When another fleet enters the battle, if Argus is afloat, all carriers and light carriers in that other fleet get 8% aviation stat, 8% reload stat, and these values are nerfed to 4% when in Operation Siren. This is literally a copy-paste with Independence's skill. Of course, Independence post-retrofit is a much better ship than Argus. She has better stats, she has a 4-4 plane loadout instead of Argus's 3-3, and Independence has seriously better weapon efficiencies than Argus. What you are getting for Argus is that heal that you aren't going to actually proc that much. When launching an airstrike, 50% chance to launch an extra torpedo bomber barrage. That's actually a pretty solid barrage here at 6 airstrike torpedoes, although it only happens 50% of the time, which is not a great proc chance. Of course, the next line of this skill says if you pair her with a carrier or light carrier, her proc chance is now 70%, which is better but not great. Of course, due to her first skill, you'll probably never have a situation where she's not in a fleet with a carrier, but you'd still rather have Independence with a Birmingham than you would have this ship. And there's one more line in this skill that might make me change my mind. Experience gained by carriers and light carriers in this fleet get 10% extra experience. This will stack with Hosho and Langley. Unfortunately, it's only 10%, not 15%, but getting that extra experience is great, and now we have our 3rd experience gainer for carriers, which can explain why they reworked those skills with a cap during this update. Alright, well, Argus is surprisingly good too. She's probably a pickup as well. She's certainly a weaker Independence, but that skill is still really good and rare. Only her, Independence, and Casablanca have it, and on top of that, she is going to have an experience gain. So she's going to be part of your mob fleets when you're trying to level up another carrier. 4 for 4, this event, literally every ship I've reviewed so far is like basically something you should pick up. They are all useful in some sort of way. Even if it's super niche, they're still like going to be used. This has been a really fun data mine to go through. Like, these are exciting ships to talk about. Well, we still have an elite destroyer to go through, so she could still ruin it and be trash, but so far all of the ships that are coming are basically must pickups for me. Last but not least, well, maybe least, we'll see, is the destroyer HMS Hero. Stat-wise, she's awful. 1500 health. Not even good at torpedoes. Like, what is she trying to do? Nothing. She's terrible. So let's go into skills. Let's get her done with quickly. At the start of the battle and every 20 seconds after that, randomly proc one of 2 special attacks. Hero Punch or Hero Sword. Both are completely trash barrages that run normal ammo. In addition to the special attack, she increases her own firepower, torpedo stat, and anti-submarine warfare by 30%. And even that can't be nice because it slowly decays decays to 0% over 20 seconds. So this isn't that great, but I guess you could argue the decaying over 20 seconds is kind of cool. So let's move on to skill number 2. Every 20 seconds, proc a sonar scan that detects enemy subs for 10 seconds and generate a shield that also lasts for 10 seconds. While she has that shield active for 10 seconds, there is also a 10% damage reduction from torpedo damage for your Vanguard. Nothing here is that special. I mean, sonar scans are everywhere now, so it's not that important, and you really only need them for World 14, so yeah, she's terrible. Oh, there's, I guess, an all-out assault that is still only normal ammo. Hero is trash. I guess she did break the trend. You don't need to pick her up unless you're going for collection. Even her fleet tech is bad. Alright, that is all the ships. 4 of them are really good, and I would recommend picking them up. Hero is collection only, but that's not the end of the video because we have equipment to get through. Technically, one of these items is already in the game. It came with a mini event that was added last week. However, no one is able to obtain this item before today. It is the Her Majesty's Top Secret Itinerary. It gives 15 firepower and 13 evasion at max stats, which is plus 11 because it's purple. And while those stats are good to have for an auxiliary you're going to want to put on battleships, they're not especially high, and thus you're running this item for its skill. When it's equipped by Queen Elizabeth, she enters rest mode. When Queen Elizabeth is in rest mode, she recovers 3% of her max HP every time that she fires her main guns. So this item on Queen Elizabeth is basically just turning her salvos into heals. The interesting part of this item is when it's equipped by a different Royal Navy ship and Queen Elizabeth is in your fleet, when Queen Elizabeth fires her odd number salvos, 1, 3, 5, etc., she enters work mode. When she enters work mode, she increases the damage your Royal Navy ships can deal by 8% for 8 seconds. After those 8 seconds, she's going to enter rest mode, which if you remember from before, means that the next time she fires her main guns, she's going to heal herself 3%. This item, when equipped by a Royal Navy ship other than Queen Elizabeth, is going to allow Queen Elizabeth to alternate between healing and boosting over and over again. And while this might not be a retrofit or even an augment module, it still does make her better for those of you who want to run mono HMS fleets. Not really an item that is necessary unless you're a Queen simp, but it's practically free, so why not pick it up? The other item that I'm going to talk about today is actually a new item we are getting today, and it's part of the event. It comes in the event shop and can be bought once. It is the Fairey Firefly 1771 Squadron. This is an SR dive bomber. It has 2 1,000-pound bombs, just like the base version of the Fairey Firefly, but the Fairey Firefly was never a good dive bomber to begin with. And while this version actually has a little bit faster launch rate, so you can use it to time a little bit better, it doesn't have any special skills. Usually the squadron planes are better than their main counterparts because they have a special skill that makes them super unique. Think the Pirate Squad or the Thatch Squad. This plane has no special skills for this squad, which is kind of disappointing and makes this plane trash. Pick it up if you want, but it's not really something that you want to use. Alright, we made it through the event, guys. This was a long video. Thank you guys for sticking through. I'm really excited about this event. The ships are really cool. Can't say so much for the equipment, but 4 of those ships are really well designed. Best of luck in your gacha pulls, guys. If you want to watch me do all of my gacha pulls, I will be doing that on stream on Sunday. I hope to see you guys there. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching. I will see you guys next time. P.S. Editing this video took a long time because I had hiccups during the whole time I was recording this video.